I ngā mana, i ngā reo, nā ihu o ngā maunga whakahili, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. I wish to acknowledge the Kanaka Māori and the whenua we stand upon, and ka haka ula o ke ele o ka e li Kolani College of Hawaiian Language for sponsoring this event today. Mahalo nui. Worldwide, an estimated 6,900 languages are spoken today. The United Nations Educational, Scientific, Cultural Organization called UNESCO suggests that by 2100, over 90% of these languages may be gone if language retention or language revitalization strategies are not implemented. Te reo Māori, the Māori language, is included in the list of vanishing languages and has been tagged by UNESCO as an endangered language. I grew up in a family that was shaped by a cultural landscape drawn from both a Māori and Pacific heritage. As we all know, it only takes 3 generations to lose a language. My family was committed to changing this. Consequently, with my family's support and the support of my elders and mentors from both my Māori and Pacific communities, I've spent my entire adult life being involved in various initiatives for the revitalization of the Māori language in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and more recently, the Pacific. This includes becoming involved with the support of my parents in the Te Kohanga Reo movement, initially as a mother to stop language loss in my family. And since my baby graduated from Kohanga and over the last 25 years, I have been called upon by the National Kohanga Reo Trust to help them in a range of jobs, including writing accreditation applications, reviews, and more recently, as an expert to give evidence at the Y2336 claim against the Crown based on my research and knowledge of Kohanga. I became involved in the lobbying of government for the establishment of Te Kura Kaupapa Māori and later Whare Kura. I've worked with my tribal community on my mother's side to establish a Kura Kaupapa Māori in that community. And this kura still exists today, over 25 years later. And all of the teachers are trained and qualified and are from my tribal community. Indigenizing the University Academy as a professor has been probably my greatest challenge. To establish culturally rich spaces, to research and teach our language and culture, and to celebrate Māori identity. And also to create policies and processes which recognise te mana o te reo, that is the status of the Māori language, as an official language since 1987, and the obligation that the university has to honour this. And of course, in the work of Tipu Karea, the National Māori Language Institute, and Te Whare Orongo Maurikura, the International Centre for Language Revitalisation. Tipu Karea was established in 2008 to promote excellence in scholarship, teaching and research in the Māori language. It was established as a result of a conversation with Papa Timoti and Papa Wharehuia, who expressed real concern about the need for a coordinated strategy of research and applied research to support language revitalisation. So, Tipu Karea is a collaboration of community and tertiary Māori language providers who are motivated by Indigenous values and principles of sharing knowledge and expertise to ensure the Māori language and culture survive. It also addresses the need for a coordinated and determined approach to improving the effectiveness and efficiency of Māori language education and of raising the status of the Māori language by taking full advantage of modern technologies. Tipu Karea, therefore, is a space for undertaking research which recovers our histories, reclaims our lands and resources, restores justice, and preserves our language and traditions while growing a cohort of qualified, dynamic scholars who will be well equipped to continue the work of the Institute and the Centre in the future, beyond me and John. Te Whare Oromo Māori Kura, the International Centre for Language Revitalisation, was established in December 2010 and is the global arm of Te Pukarea. It was established in response to international inquiries and requests from language groups interested in the work being developed by Te Pukarea for the revitalisation of the Māori language, and in particular the use of technology. Both the Institute and the Centre focus on addressing language endangerment through documentation, pedagogy, and revitalisation to empower learners and transform our communities. The creation of digital resources, collaboration with Indigenous communities, educating and upskilling future language revitalisation strategists through targeted programs is the primary work being carried out in the Institute and the Centre. The Centre is nestled inside the Institute. Thus, the synergy exists between the Institute and the Centre. I will now highlight just a couple of the projects and resources to come out of the Institute and the Centre, as you will hear more about these projects in the presentations tomorrow. He Pātaka Mātauranga. This is one of the projects we have undertaken. It reflects the significance and validity of Māori knowledge and the importance of the role we place on the repositories of this knowledge. We brought together key repositories of Māori knowledge and language from throughout the country who were interviewed and recorded. Their interviews offer great insight into various topics, including customary law and tradition, identity, leadership, and thoughts on the place of modern technology in the Māori world. The elders were also asked about their childhood, for instance, how they were named and what their favourite games were as children. The footage that we captured provides such a rich resource, not only of cultural knowledge, but also of the language spoken by native speakers of Māori. Their interviews are streamed online and are now free to access to anyone in the world. Sadly, some of these elders who participated in this project have since passed on. However, their stories and knowledge will live on in their communities forever. The Reo Online Language Learning System is an online tool to help develop fluency in endangered, minority and Indigenous languages. It is a digital repository of language material and cultural knowledge, a system of learning activities and a social network for language teachers, language learners, teachers, students and advocates. Reo, as you know, is the Māori term for language and voice. The term reo was chosen for its simplicity and what it conveys in terms of providing a voice for endangered languages. The system is based on the idea that language learning is a social and community-based activity. Reo is being designed with a wide range of learners in mind, from the casual, self-directed learner to students enrolled in a formal language learning situation. Additionally, Reo supports informal and formal involvement from fluent speakers in the wider community and provides a younger generation with examples of quality language and cultural knowledge that they will require to function as Indigenous citizens in the modern age. The core of Reo is the language learning curriculum. This curriculum is delivered through a range of features that are designed to enrich the learning experience. So the key features of Reo are a sophisticated social networking system that affords a wide range of social interactions around language learning and creates an online community to extend and reinforce the physical one. A dynamic dictionary tool that enables quick access to definitions, usage, and other information during the learning process. A progress and evaluation system that automatically tracks and evaluates a learner's progress through the curriculum. And the ability to chat with other learners and language experts during the learning experience. A beta version of the system is currently being piloted with the Hawaiian language in association with Leilani Basham in West Oahu. Feedback from the group will inform the improvement and refinement of the system. Reo Online is a priority for the Centre in 2014. In the last year, we've had some great progression with the system. In 2013, the language group from Oahu, Hawaii was successful in acquiring some funding to populate their system with content. The Hawaiian contingent has also been working hard alongside our development teams to streamline Reo Online's function and user interface. Another positive update is that we are also close to a completed Te Whanake version of the system. And when we talk about Te Whanake, it's a whole package, it's a curriculum, it's a series of books and resources, but I'll leave John to talk to you more about that. He's known as John Warfield Te Whanake. The hope is that Reo Online Te Whanake will be the flagship of the project, where we will be able to showcase the full potential of the Reo Online language learning system when it has the benefit of having a robust collection of language learning content. Both the Institute, and remember we're on language revitalisation strategies, yeah? We've gone from kohana to kura to wānanga, we're moving through time. So both the Institute and Centre now offer master's degrees that are offered through video conferencing, as is the case with the MA in Te Reo Māori, and online, as is the case with the MA in Language Revitalisation. Our motivation for offering the two master's programs in these ways is based on the following. And I'm not sure that here in Hawaii you have the same issues, but it would be good to discuss this later. The first one is to expect people involved in the revitalisation of their languages within their communities to move away from their homes to pursue a higher degree is unrealistic. You take someone who's a speaker out of their community, what happens? To take these people away from their communities invariably leaves huge gaping holes in the communities they serve, and often the communities do not recover because they don't go home. Offering these programs online or through video conferencing enables these students to remain in their communities and gain a higher qualification at the same time. They can also share ideas and experiences with other people involved in language revitalisation and create a strong network of scholars from other countries to communicate with. The majority of the assignments in both of these programs are designed to enable the students to conduct research within and for their communities, such as writing a draft language plan, developing digital language resources, writing research proposals, learning to apply Indigenous research methodologies. Offering these programs help us to create a cohort of language revitalisation strategists who are equipped with a blend of academic and experiential knowledge to then train others in their own communities. So, what does the Masters of Arts in Language Revitalisation online look like? For us, we have a different system, so I won't go into the complexities of that system. Suffice to say that it is a talk masters, 120 points of papers and 120 points of a dissertation or an exegesis, which is a collection of resources or some art or some videos or documentaries, so forth. So we have papers called Ecology of Language Revitalisation and Educational Agency in Language Revitalisation. These all look at issues around revitalisation, research methods in language revitalisation, how to understand field work, to conduct field work, how to engage with our own people in a really safe and appropriate way while also meeting the conventions of the university. We have other papers that you can take as choices: language endangerment, language planning, language policy.
One thing we're passionate about in Te Pukaria, the National Māori Language Institute, and Te Whare o Rongo Maurikura, the International Centre for Language Revitalisation, is to create language revitalisation strategists who can transform their communities. And how are we doing this? One way is to create postgraduate studies in language revitalisation that are delivered online. How are we doing this? We're doing this through amazing technology, using Collaborate, where we can deliver this information through lecturers who can deliver courses from all over the world to you in communities.
Southeast, but of course that doesn't mean to say that there are no speakers in the Southeast, because you'll recall that I said that I came from the Southeast of Wales.
Why is this qualification, or these qualifications, the certificate, the diploma and the full Masters program, really important and also unique? We can provide assessments where the students can develop resources as their assignments which will benefit their communities. And that's cutting edge, that's unique to this program.
So how did the people there understand the weather signs to prepare for tsunamis and hurricanes and cyclones and all of that? They had their own signs, they had their own symbols, yeah? And the banana tree was one of them.
What are the benefits of these qualifications? People can stay home in their communities and still work with their communities, and they would want to do this because they would be committed to ensuring that they work with communities in saving their endangered languages. Secondly, the assessments, you can build resources that are relevant and are going to help your communities, and you can leave something with your community as you gain the qualification. So, if you care about language and you care about your community and you care about the right of your community to language, then postgraduate studies in language revitalisation is for you. Enroll right now with AUT.
That promo is to get out to our communities, but also was motivated by people, Indigenous communities around the world, asking for us to share knowledge around our models and our technology. So we developed this as an offering to the world as well. So the MA in Language Revitalisation is one significant way we can help communities by building the human resource, and by doing this, we are in fact educating future language revitalisations who can again educate their own respective communities. Ngugi wa Thiong'o aptly stated, language is a communication system and carrier of language, of culture, by virtue of being simultaneously the means and carrier of memory. Language is the clarifying medium of memory, or rather the two are intertwined. To starve or kill a language is to starve and kill a people's memory bank. And of course, Malcolm X said to the world, the future belongs to those who prepare for it today. So Te Pukaria, by using technologies to archive Te Reo Māori, is helping to ensure that the language is available for future generations in a medium which is relevant to them. We use digital technologies which complement our ancient and traditional knowledge system in the preservation of our memories, of our past traditions and epistemologies, of our artefacts and our treasures, and strategies which are a nexus between our ancient past, the contemporary world, and our future. In concluding, this cultural exchange that's happening right now between our peoples, embedded within that is a relationship with a shared common linguistic origin. We would like to develop this further. Already for us, bringing our postgraduate students here and our staff here amongst you, we can see the benefits of just being with you over lunch. Yesterday was a very watershed moment for me, having lunch with Papa Larry, who said that language, committed to language every day. Ke koa is the same, committed to language teaching every day. That defies universities in New Zealand, where language is timetabled 2 hours here, 2 hours later in the week. You followed us, now we need to follow you. I will be taking it home. So to end, I want to end with a video that will show our aloha and the relationship and our future, perhaps.
Kia ora, my name is Toiro Williams. I am a postgraduate student at AUT University studying my Master of Arts, majoring in Māori development. A key aspect that I find pretty cool here at Auckland University of Technology is the cultural aspect. And I'm talking about all the tight-knit groups within the university. We have Tongan associations, we have Māori Students Association, we have Fijian, Samoan, a lot of the Pacific Islands, all based within the university and have their own cultural groups and many more, but those are just to name a few. For myself personally, I associate with Titahi Kitua, AUT's Māori Student Association. We also have the awesome ability to perform kapahaka, which is an amazing time to express our culture, to express our identity, and of course to tautoko and awhi events that are happening within the university.
Kia ora, my name is Dean Mahuta and I am a Senior Lecturer at Te Arapautama, Faculty of Māori and Indigenous Development here at AUT. I was lucky enough to go on exchange to UH Manoa, and while there I did a lot of the Hawaiian Studies papers. I took Hawaiian language, the advanced course, which is 2 semesters rolled into one. I also enrolled in a hula paper, which was a great paper to take because, you know, gave me an insight into hula and performing arts as it sort of pertains to Hawaii. One of the best things about my experience at UH Manoa is that I was able to learn about the Hawaiian culture and also look how it compares to Māori culture. So I'd like to believe that when students come here to AUT is that they'll be able to get an insight into their relatives on this side of the Pacific. They'll be able to sort of compare languages, compare cultures, but also strengthen those bonds between Māori and Kanaka Māori. A great advantage to Hawaiian students coming to AUT is that there is a MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, between University of Hawaii and Auckland University of Technology, in which TAP, Te Arapautama, is the main facilitator of that MOU. What this MOU means is that it makes it easier for a transfer of students between UH and AUT. So we'd love to have and to host Hawaiian students here at AUT, and that's what this MOU is for. It makes that transition between universities a lot easier for students. So to our ohana, come over to AUT, you'll have a great experience.
Tēnā koutou, ko whakarauika mai ki kona I te rānei, ki te whakarongo ki a mātou kōrero. Tēnei te mihi atu ki a koe, Larry, koutou ko tō hunga whakaako, ka atu ki ngā akonga o te whare wānanga nei, tēnei te mihi atu ki a koutou. I'm going to be talking fairly quickly, I hope, about the resources we've developed for teaching Maori language at adult level, teenage and adult level, and particularly the ones we are using in universities. But before I get on to that, I just want to briefly touch on my own language development and how fortunate I've been in having mentors all along the way who have encouraged me, nurtured me, fed me with knowledge that I'm sure they've wanted me to impart to others. So these resources that we're talking about are perhaps a result of that idea that they've had along the way. And the first one probably I should mention is Hoani Waititi, who was my teacher when I first went to secondary school way back in 1956. And he sowed the seed, I guess, for me to want to learn the language, because I was very fortunate in that I went to a school where Maori was compulsory in the first 2 years of school, called in Maoridom Tipene, but proper name is St. Stephen's School, now shut unfortunately, but was one of the earliest schools set up in New Zealand. And Hoani Waititi was my teacher, and I had a sequence of other teachers, but it was Hoani Waititi who sowed the seeds within me to learn the language. And then after that, people like Hoani Te Rangihau, that Timothy had a photo of, he was another mentor. Timothy Kairetu, as you all know him, and Wharehuia, they've mentored me since probably when I first went to Waikato University and earlier, in the case of Timothy particularly. And then more recently, Tania over here, who I've worked with for 17 years now, and she's been a great support for what I've been trying to do. And these resources have become a joint effort. They're not just my work. There are a whole lot of people who I will mention along the way, probably. So in the illustration there, you can see some of the resources, the hard copy resources that are available in the Te Whanake series. But these developed because when I went to Waikato University to teach, I was using textbooks that were designed for secondary school pupils. And they were written by Hoani Waititi, but I increasingly got questions about and criticism about the books I was using, because they were based on the audiolingual method that some of you may know about, that was current at the time he wrote the books. And also they were rural based, and a lot of the students weren't from rural areas. They were rather sexist in that the boys did all the exciting activities and the girls stayed at home sewing and washing dishes and those sorts of things. And of course the female students were critical of that. And also they weren't particularly well designed for adults. They were designed for secondary school pupils. So I gradually developed the idea that at some stage I was going to have to write my own textbooks and own resources. And that's how these developed. So I designed some textbooks for my own students, and then along came a publisher. They talked to Timothy and Wharehuia and said, well, why don't you publish these? So that's where it all started. And that was, the publisher was what has now become Pearson, which has now become Penguin. So there were a series of publishing houses that amalgamated and then developed into something else along the way. Okay, let's move on. So the first things I developed were the textbooks, and I had certain principles I followed when I was developing these. One of the main ones was that you teach the language that's most useful first, and you don't base it on teaching the simplest grammar and developing into the more complex grammar. These were developed along situations that were everyday situations. So Te Kātano, the first one, has dialogues that are centered around everyday things, getting up in the morning, having a meal, those sorts of things. And out of those, each chapter has a dialogue that contains the language I want to develop in that particular chapter. And once the dialogue has been learnt, then there's a series of explanations and activities that develop the ability for learners to use those things that crop up in the dialogue. And as well, I developed listening and speaking activities that at the time were cassette tapes. Later these became CDs, and still later they were podcasts, and they're available free now. So those are the 4 textbooks, going from beginner right through to advanced. And they're the core element of all the resources. And so, as I've said, the cassette tapes were later converted into CDs. They're still selling, which is surprising me, because I thought, because they're now available free online. There's free downloadable podcasts, but obviously there's a need for these still, so we continue to develop them. And then at the same time also I developed teachers' manuals, which contain a variety of materials, including ideas about how to teach the language, but crucially activities that enable the teacher to get the students talking, because it's very crucial, and I became very aware of this as I developed my own teaching technique, that it's not just about teaching the grammar, it's not just about teaching idioms, it's not just about teaching vocabulary, it's also putting students in a situation where they have to use the language that they're learning to communicate about other things. That's, to me, is a key element of good language teaching. It's not just the formal instruction, it's about putting students in that situation where they have to speak, and they have to, you can control it to a degree, and those activities that are in the teachers' manuals are designed to provide activities, a range of activities, which in my mind I was thinking, well, teachers will take that idea for that particular activity and develop it for something else. I'm not sure that that's happened, but that was the theory. And then later on, I realised, there's not enough material. In a university situation, we have such a short period during the week to teach the language. We need resources that we can use to send the students away and work on their own at home or wherever. So I developed these study guides, really workbooks, which contain a variety of materials, but principally aimed at developing reading and writing skills, vocabulary development, and some more strengthening of the grammatical system. And then after I developed all the textbooks and so on, each of the textbooks at the back contains all the new vocabulary that occurs in that textbook, and also where to find the grammatical points, because the grammatical points are introduced gradually, and maybe not all elements of a particular grammar point are introduced at one point. They might occur in various chapters or even in a later book. So once all the books were finished, if you get to the advanced level, then it's difficult to find where a particular grammar point is. So part of the idea of the dictionary was to amalgamate all that vocabulary into one place and use it as a dictionary, as an index as well, and then it became a dictionary. And this is the 3rd edition that you see. There's a copy over there if you want to have a look. It's designed differently from a lot of dictionaries in that it's much broader. It aims at providing what learners need to have to be able to communicate in the language. So it's not just the verbs and nouns and so on. It's also important people in Māoridom. It's how to identify particular species of plants or birds or animals. All those sorts of things are incorporated in it as well. And then Tania and I were able to get some funding to actually search through the Maori language newspapers, the Bible, Maori Bible, and collect a corpus of, or a collection of loanwords that have been borrowed from mainly English and incorporated into the Maori language, adapted and transliterated into the Maori language. And the newspapers are full of them. And we ended up with a database of 18,000 loanwords. Now, when we say 18,000 loanwords, that seems a lot, but a lot of those are what the linguists call nonce words. They're words that developed and were used maybe only once. So if they were talking about the wars in Russia, they might have used a transliteration for a name of a place where a battle was fought in Russia. They transliterated it, popped up in the newspapers, but was never used again. So it really never became part of the language. But once we completed the database, we developed a dictionary that contains the words that have become part of the language or were part of the language for a period, but because the particular item, it might have been an old word for something that's used with horses, that's no longer used, but was used for a period of time, then they were incorporated as well. And eventually, those words from that dictionary were incorporated into the main dictionary. Then, as technology developed, we decided that dictionary would be great if we could put it online. And so we did that in 2006, and then since then we've been adding more and more words, headwords, more and more meanings. In the last 3 years, I've added example sentences for most of the, not only the headwords, but each separate meaning within the headword with translations. And a lot of those example sentences have come from the Maori language newspapers, the corpus of knowledge of text that we have, fortunately, online that we can search. So that those online materials have become a great value to us in developing the dictionary. Also, if you look at the example we've got there, Kārearea, it's a name for the New Zealand falcon. You can see that it's got that meaning for it, it's got the Latin terminology for it, other common names for it, and then followed by a dash, a description, a brief description of that bird. Now, it's okay for birds, you can probably describe them okay, but when it comes to flora, plants, you can describe them, but still learners aren't able to identify those particular species. So if you can have a photo there as well, then that's a real advantage. And hopefully we'll be able to nip into the dictionary later on and show you some of its features. Then also we were lucky enough in about 2004 to gain some funding to produce more supporting materials, and particularly animated movies with activities that were tied to those. And again, these were designed for individual study. So hopefully we'll be able to go into that briefly at the end. When I first started teaching, I was really envious of languages like Spanish, French and German, where they were being taught as second languages, because they had this wonderful set of resources at the time, and I was green with envy because I wished we had such a thing for Maori. I think we've got to the stage where in some cases we've got ahead of those languages, because we've got animated movies, and I haven't seen any websites with things like that. They are expensive to develop, and we were fortunate in getting some funding for that. They aren't finished yet. We're in the process of completing those, but we have been able to get some funding to be able to finish the animated movies, and that's something that you might want to think about. Another website we developed was in the 1990s, I think it was. A couple of series of television programs were developed for education television, which existed at the time but no longer does. And those were 2 series, 13 episodes, half-hour episodes, which were tied to the Te Whanake series. And Te Kaiata Rangatira was the one that was first developed. I don't know why, but that was the first one, and that was for intermediate level students. And then later on they went back to the start and developed something for the first series, which was Te Kahana. And once those had been shown, they were sat away in an archive and nobody was able to use them. So we eventually persuaded Television New Zealand, who thought they owned it but didn't. The funding for those came from Te Māngai Pāho, a Māori television funding agency, and the Ministry of Education. They provided the funding, so in theory they owned them. But Television New Zealand thought they owned them, and it was quite a real battle to get them to hand them over and allow us to use them free online. So they're free online as well. And then more recently, Te Māngai Pāho put up some funding to develop a Māori language program for television, and Quinton Heta and Te O Kahurangi Waka from Kura Productions came to me and said, well, you know, the best way to do this is to use an existing series of resources and to build on that. So that's what they did. And so Tōku Reo, 300 half-hour episodes that are still showing on Māori television. They are designed to go with the first book, so you've got 300 half-hour episodes designed to support the material in the first episode. They're a very good series because they go very slowly and they do lots of revision. And that's also available free online, and you can go in from the homepage of Te Whanake, which is and you can see there Tōku Reo. You can see also there the Māori dictionary. This particular interface you're looking at is that all the Te Whanake resources have an English interface and a Māori interface. So this one here is the Māori interface, and in the top right hand corner you can see a little bar there with English on it. So if you want to switch to the English, then you can just flick on that thing. Then, more recently again, the development of apps for Apple devices and Android phones and things has come into being. And so we thought, well, why don't we develop an app to go with the dictionary, and that makes the dictionary even more mobile than just having it available on the internet. And so we developed the app. It has a special interface for small devices, one for the iPad or the Android tablets, or for the iPhone or Android phones. And then even more recently, we've developed an app for all the resources. So one of the problems that we became very aware of some time ago was that there were all these resources there and lots of activities that support what was in the book, but teachers and students didn't know where to go at a particular stage in the development to access a particular grammar point and activities to develop that use of that particular grammar point or usage point or vocabulary. And so a couple of our students at the time, Dean and Rachel, Dean Mahuta and Rachel Kahai Mahuta, were part of the team that they developed the matrix, which listed all the resources that went with a particular grammar point or a particular aspect that's in the textbooks. And so that app is now available for the first book, and shortly the second book, Te Pihina with all its resources, will be available as well. So John's hurrying me along here. So the final thing I want to show is the dictionary online statistics, and you could see there that in the year ending 17th of October, well over 2 million visits were made to the dictionary website, and you could see quite a significant number of those came from iPhones or Android phones, and from tablets, iPads and so on. And then the number of users, that's the individual IP numbers that, or people that were accessing the Te Aka Dictionary website, is almost 1 million, and the average time that they were on it was 6.6 minutes and 18 seconds. That's the average, so some people are spending a lot more time than that on it. The number of page views, over 11.5 million, and pages per session, that's the number of searches really that they do. And then you can see that just about all countries of the world are accessing the website by someone or other. So that's very, very briefly a breakdown of the thing. Have we got time to go to the websites? Let's go to the dictionary website. And if we put in pukeko. You don't know what a pukeko is? And the beauty of this is you don't have to know where the macrons go. You just put the word in without the macrons, and it will come up, hopefully. It does. And there you've got pukeko with the macron, and a description of what it is, an example sentence with it being used. There's the pukeko with one of its chicks, and that's the sound it makes. Not particularly attractive, but so if you come to New Zealand and you hear that sound, that's the pukeko. And if you can. You don't know who Wharehuia Milroy is? There's a little bit about him there, and if you click on his photos, there's his beautiful face. So, I mean, that shows you what you can do. We'll just stick in one more. So, most people here won't know what the umbrella fern is, including all of us. And probably they don't know what the Maori name for it is either. So there's two names for it, Waikura and Tapuwai Kōtuku, which is a descriptive name, the feet of the footprints of the white heron. And there we are. And that's what it looks like. Quite a beautiful fern. Not very big, fairly small. And that helps you identify what the fern looks like. So that's just what you can do with online resources. And of course the beauty of online resources is that you can put in something new, you can change something very easily in the administrative site, and then as soon as you press save, it's available to the world. And so it's much more update. That dictionary over there came out in 2011. There's a lot more in the dictionary now. Just a word of warning though, you can have a website like this, but if you don't have someone that's enthusiastic about keeping it up to date, adding to it, developing it, and making sure that when something happens and it goes offline or something goes wrong, because it does, then you need to be able to react very quickly to that. And we're very fortunate that we have a web developer who is very accessible and keeps telling us things that we can do that we hadn't thought about. Second side I want to go into is the animation side. We've gone into the second set of animations. We'll just very quickly show you the animation.
Tēnā me koe. Kei te pēhea koe. Tēnā kōrua, kei te whērā tonu.
That's the first one we developed in about 2006. These are more recent ones. Well, the second book, and we'll just go into the first one. It's not the best of the animated movies, but it has all the characters, so that'll do.
Kei te haere hei ki te tākaro i nā nei. Tai wai, kia mutu tō kai. Kua mutu a haere e koe, ko mai tō periti. Ka whai e tama, horoia o ringaringa.
Auwe, nā wai e nei maramara parau e whiu.
Nā taku wahine.
E kao, nā te here ripine pia.
Kāore, nā neihana ke. Ia tātou e kai ana I kite au iaia.
Tētahi te mai titinihanga.
Ira, titiro ki ngā manu.
He aha e rā manu.
Aua, pātai atu ki tō kuia, ki tō pāpā rāne.
E pā, he aha e rā manu.
He tī rairaka e rā, e manu Māori. Kāore taua manu I te mataku I te tangata. Titiro.
E tama, he hanga karo tēnā manu.
He parauri te tinana, he parauri, he pano, he mā hoki te humaiko.
Ai, ka pai e tama.
He manu a tāhua hoki, ne e pā.
Ai e tama, tō mōhi o hoki.
So you can see they're quite short, but within that particular dialogue there's a number of new language items that have occurred that the students haven't had before. And so down on the right hand side you've got activities that develop those particular things. So if we go into the parts of the bird, for example, because that chapter from Te Pihinga is focused on knowledge about birds and language about birds. And so there's an activity there that develops their ability to talk about the parts of a bird. And then if you type in something there, doesn't matter what we type in, you type it in and you check your answer. Just here. Click on it. Comes up red, you got it wrong. Try again, comes up red. Keep checking. And then the third time, to avoid frustration, it says reveal answer. So it reveals answer. And if you put that in and clicked on check answer, it will come up blue and show you that you've got it correct. So it's immediate feedback. And almost all of the activities that are used on the site have that immediate feedback. And sometimes it's vocal as well. So it says ka pai or whatever, and the voices are Dean or Rachel or someone. So we thought we'd do animated movies for a change. And we're quite proud of them because they're something that's not been done a lot by second language teachers.